As the war in Ukraine continues and grows in complexity, there are several organizations that are providing relief and recovery. Previously, I connected with large international relief charities, but today I'm spotlighting a more recently established organization, White Stork. I'm joined by Marine veteran Will McNulty, who is the co-founder of Team Rubicon and is now leading the new organization named White Stork that's operating on the front lines of the war in Ukraine. Will, thanks so much for joining me.
Kevin, thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, let's get right into it. What is Operation White Storm and why was it created?
Well, thanks, Kevin. So White Stork is a veteran-led rapid response humanitarian organization, and we take our name from the national bird of Ukraine, the White Stork. We evacuate women and children, the elderly, and their pets. We provide free temporary housing to evacuees. We directly supply hospital networks across Ukraine with supplies, and we directly provide individual first aid kits and personal protective equipment to the defense and humanitarian forces in Ukraine.
That's fantastic. Is it safe to say that it was born out of the war in Ukraine?
I thought I was retired from this type of work. Yes, I flew over to Ukraine on February 27th and conducted a needs assessment, met with several leaders, political, military, humanitarian, and basically came down with their two lines of effort that we decided to focus on. That was evacuations, getting people out, and medical supplies, providing these directly to frontline units.
Sure. Well, there's a number of organizations, like I alluded to, that I've connected with that are responding in a variety of different ways. It sounds like you're, right on the front lines, which is really commendable. What is your approach to providing relief and recovery, and how do you see that it differs from those other organizations?
So, our strategy is first in and last mile. So we only deliver to end users. We don't supply large aid depots. We ensure that 100% of donations reach those who need it most. So we really are responding to the demand signal from Ukrainians on the front lines. And we're propelled by our strategic formal relationships with Ukrzaliznytsia, which is the Ukrainian Railways that helps us move supplies, and Ukrainian Congress Committee of America. But it's a bottom-up strategy. Our vehicles every week are delivering supplies directly to brigades and the chief medical officers of these brigades that are going in to take back Ukrainian cities from the Russian invaders.
Well, one of the things that is quite different is that just the visibility that folks have into what's going on in Ukraine. I mean, with live streaming and photos and videos that are being shared on Twitter and other social media sources, it's a real kind of turning point into getting to see the horrors of war. Hopefully, some different kind of human interest side of things, where you see the great work that you and other folks are doing. What are you and your team actually seeing evolve in Ukraine over the past couple of months?
Well, incredibly, now over 4 months into this war, we're seeing Ukrainian brigades going into battle without the most basic of medical kit, the individual first aid kit, or IFAKs, as we call them. These contain tourniquets, Israeli bandages, other tools to stop traumatic bleeding in case of a battlefield injury. And it's just incredible to me that a country in Europe in 2022 is fighting off an invasion, an aggressor like Russia, committing war crimes as an act of policy, similar to the ones that we saw committed by Nazi Germany 80 years ago.
It's horrific. I appreciate you sharing that, and even more so appreciate the work that you and other organizations are doing to combat that. You kind of said it in jest of, hey, you thought you were done with this work, but you're no stranger to this, being a Marine veteran and somebody who co-founded Team Rubicon. How is this situation different than those that you've been previously involved with?
I have responded to many types of disasters around the world, including man-made disasters in South Sudan and in Burma, in other places. However, never have I responded to a disaster that has these grim historical echoes that are too familiar to ignore. We have targeted destruction of hospitals, of schools, of churches, of museums, of cultural centers. Government supported systemic rape as a weapon of war. Intentional targeting of trains that are being used to evacuate civilians. Deportation of civilian populations into Russia and forced impregnation. This has all the appearances of genocide. I've never experienced that before in my decade plus of humanitarian work, and I don't think we've seen anything on the scale of this since we have former Yugoslavia and in Rwanda, two places that the world did not act fast enough. We have a new opportunity here to stop what is taking place in Ukraine, which is genocide.
I really commend you for jumping into action. Obviously, I can only imagine that it's quite challenging from getting there to kind of supply chain and all the infrastructure that's associated with it. But you're persevering and you're navigating your way through it. Now, obviously, that doesn't just happen on its own. There's resources that are required, and I'm curious if you could share as to how folks can help you and your team in your efforts.
I would ask people to have a discussion amongst their coworkers, their friends, their family, their neighbors about the lessons of World War II and whether never again truly means anything, or if it's just a platitude that we say every January on Holocaust Remembrance Day. Is America doing enough to stop a murderous dictator who has launched a devastating war on the people of Ukraine? And I think that's the question facing us, almost 5 months into this war. It's cost tens of thousands of lives already. It's driven, millions from their homes. It's strained global supply chains. It's roiling energy markets. But at the end of the day, if never again truly means something, if we are going to stop Russia from wiping out Ukrainian bloodlines and destroying Ukrainian culture, you can pressure your elected representatives with, a simple phone call or letter to them and tell them that you expect the United States to continue to hold the line against these grim historical echoes by increasing the pressure on Russia through sanctions and international condemnation and military support to Ukraine.
And where can folks learn more about White Stork and support you in your efforts specifically?
Well, you can learn more about White Stork on our website at operationwhitestork.org.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Hey, really appreciate you joining me and sharing some insight into the current situation in Ukraine and how White Stork is responding. Thanks for all you're doing, and hope to hear some good news from your camp in the coming months.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
Of course.